Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reading into Culture. My name's Zara.
Hey, I'm Chris.
And we're here today with Kendall. Hello, Kendall.
Hi, Kendall.
How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
We're also doing well. It's 6 a.m. for us, so if we look a little tired, then keep it to yourself.
Yeah, a little sleepy. A little sleepy.
I don't know.
But yeah, I'm very glad it worked out with the time zones still to have this talk. Um, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone watching?
Sure. I'm Kendall. I was born and raised here in San Diego. I'm a mom of three, and I have always been a reader and a writer. Really, as long as I can remember, from a very young age, I've always been obsessed with books and putting pen to paper in some way. I write all types of things from nonfiction and poetry, which is less of a strong suit, to fiction. Um, and it's sort of like stories is sort of how I like to understand the world around me. So thank you guys so much for having me today. I'm really excited to talk.
Oh, that's wonderful. No, thanks so much for being here. That's really no, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I don't take it for granted at all that people decide to give us so much of their time and energy. It's really touching.
Hmm.
So what kind of things do you like to read? What's kind of your, I don't know, what's your kind of diet?
Wide.
That's good. That's good.
I read some of everything,
Mm-hmm.
mostly fiction, like literary fiction, um, quite a bit of horror, magical realism, speculative fiction, but I also really like memoirs. I like reading like pop science, like
Mm-hmm.
nonfiction books, um, poetry, short stories, classics, everything.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds very
Okay,
good. That sounds very
makes
good.
sense.
And can you kind of take us on like a journey with your writing as well? I'm interested because usually people don't start out writing everything at once. Maybe you did. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people start with poetry and then they kind of maybe turn towards fiction, or you just start with fiction or whatever. Like, how was your kind of journey through that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. I think it started really with I was a journaler when I
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
a kid. And I read so much. I would just absorb stories. And I wanted so badly to write books and write stories myself. So I always loved writing from, being a child. And then, like, as an adult, I really started writing fiction when I was like 17, 18, writing fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And then that sort of transformed into like the Tumblr era poetry. Very bad and embarrassing, and thankfully there's not a trace of that left. But then I would just sort of write short stories. I've always had sort of a novel brewing in my head at some point or another that usually gets abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started going to college late in my mid late 20s. And I just recently graduated. It took me 8 years on and off of going to school, but I minored in creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I really started to pick up and being like, this is really what I want to be doing. Um, so now, mostly, I have written some poetry recently, some nonfiction recently, but mostly it's short stories.
Yes.
So.
Mm. I did want to ask as well about kind of writing when you have children. I don't think we've had anybody on the podcast, at least not that we knew, who has children, and I don't know. I wonder if maybe the short story form is also kind of a good form for when you when you're short on time rather than writing a novel. And it's so interesting that you kind of went through these like kind of millennial phases of fan fiction and then Tumblr poetry, and now you've got three kids and you're still writing and you're submitting, and I don't know. That seems like a really nice progression. But is it like difficult, more difficult, I would assume, to write when you have kids, or do you manage to kind of find a lot of time for that?
Yeah, thank you. It is definitely
Mm.
difficult. I'm not working right now, so it's sort of we're looking at my my spouse and I were looking at like my sort of individual time as like writing slash like all the other sort of housekeeping things. So I get time to write maybe once or twice a week at the
Hmm.
most.
Mm,
Um, when I was a young adult, it was like I would just write from, 9 p.m. until 2 o'clock in the morning and then wake
mm,
up early for work. That doesn't really work anymore.
Yeah.
mm,
So it is definitely harder, but I think that having my kids makes me feel more motivated to
mm,
write because
Mm.
it's like I want them to see me doing what makes me feel happy and what makes like creating art I think is so important, and it was on the back burner for so long. Um and so I have like a newfound motivation, so it's interesting because less time, but I think I get more done
mm.
than I
Oh.
used to because I'm just like my brain is constantly going, and then I can sit down and I have the time and I'm like, yeah, okay, like I get in the groove pretty easily.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, that seems to be like what parenthood kind of does to you. You have less time, but the time you have, you use more efficiently.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Um,
Hmm.
no, that's really cool. Really cool that you kind of are that example to your kids of creativity and passion. And I
Thank
think
you.
that's really lovely.
Yeah. Amazing.
Do you have anything else to say before we start?
No, I think we can jump into the piece if yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
probably about time.
So, if you don't mind, would you read out your piece for us, please?
Not at all. My heart incomprehensibly transforms into a naked mole rat. This morning I woke and found that my heart was missing, a gaping hole above my left breast, and a trail of blood and dollops of skin and pus and sinew leading out of my bedroom to the hall out the door. I followed the trail, holding a dirty purple flannel from my laundry basket over the crater in my chest. I could feel the broken rib poking my hand, arteries spiraling out, hoses left unattended and gushing. The trail made up of little chompy bits of me, dots on a treasure map, some kind of sick path of breadcrumbs out of someone's nightmare. X marks the spot, and I end up at your front door. I walk right into your kitchen where you excitedly tell me that you have a new pet, a naked mole rat who came to your door first thing this morning. A baby, you said, covered in blood like it had just sprung from its mother's womb. You're not incorrect. Not entirely. You bring him to the door to show him off, cradling him between sprawled fingered hands and his wet little nose hiding behind the longest, ugliest buck teeth I've seen in my life. Wiggles through the bars of his cage and stops as his beady black eyes lock onto mine. His loose pink skin reminds me of somebody's grandfather's uncircumcised penis, and I can't look at him anymore. You had already gone to the pet store. You bought a cage, asked the kid at the counter for pellets to feed your newest friend. He said, "We don't sell naked mole rat food here, but I think it might like these regular rat treats." You Googled it and found out they eat their own poop, root vegetables, and especially love sweet potatoes. So you went to the farmer's market for the best organic tubers you could find. It seemed at first wrong to cage him, but the idea is growing on me. Naked mole rats are small and vulnerable and easily stomped on, and he looks safe and happy in there. His name is Thaddeus. I sit and stare as you lovingly feed bits of sweet potato to the little guy who looks, to me, like God's most disgusting creation. You have cartoony, heart shaped pupils bouncing out of your skull as he nibbles out of your fingers. Your face lightens with a sort of odd hilarity that makes me see him in a different way. Maybe he's not so bad. I was planning on telling you all about my heart escaping, but that cage on your kitchen counter seemed a better place than this empty crevice. Naked mole rats need to be socialized anyway, and it would probably eat my other organs if I put it back. Probably just escape again to the cage he loves so much. He seems happy to be your pet. I don't want him back anyway. You can keep him.
Thank you so much.
Amazing, amazing.
It's such a cute, it's such an adorable piece. I really love it. I think I would like to start with the title. And I think what really makes this piece one of many things is the word incomprehensibly in the title. I think is so genius that it's if you just have the title "My Heart Transforms into a Naked Mole Rat," it's kind of like, that's just kind of what happens. But the incomprehensibly adds such a level of like humor, and also just kind of it just kind of says, it's incomprehensible. There's no explanation for it. Don't ask for it. It kind of makes it clear immediately. Don't look for a reason why this has happened. This has just happened. Just accept it. Um, can you kind of talk through this? First of all, the title coming together, but then also this aspect of the piece of just the kind of unexplainedness of it all.
Sure, yeah. First of all, thank you. Uh, this piece came about in a creative writing class, and the only parameter was write something surreal. And I just thought like I'm just gonna go into like the wackiest part of my brain, and um, it just sort of came about. The title was I struggled with the title. And, I'm sure like you can tell like I was sort of leaning towards like the simple, like simplistic sort of like this is what it is, straightforward. And I was a little bit self-conscious about that at first, going, well, I'm kind of like just laying it all out there and just like saying what it is. But I thought maybe that's one of like the fun parts of it, that like you said, like the humor of it. So I liked the just being like, this is exactly what happens. Like it doesn't make any sense at all, kind of like you said.
Mm.
We don't know what's going on, but it's incomprehensible. Um, and I also thought that it would, I think a lot of fiction and poetry, we tend to like come up with like shorter titles that like once you read the piece, then you go back and you understand the title a little bit better. But I thought that it would maybe help the reader a little bit to like know what they're getting into, like
Mm.
because the title is incomprehensible as well.
Mm. I do feel like there's some sort of resistance towards like surrealism in some way. Like if something's described and it doesn't make sense, your first instinct is to think, okay, maybe it's a metaphor, or maybe it's just kind of like an image, or what's going on here. Um, and it sometimes takes a while to, unless you like, the packaging is fantasy and you know what you're getting into. Um, it takes a while to really kind of settle in with the idea, but because your piece just lays it all out there, my heart incomprehensibly transformed into a naked mole rat. You know what you're getting into. You know what's going on, and there's no adjustment period within the piece, and so you can just start and say, "This morning I woke up and found out my heart was missing," and it's I think it's really helpful for the reader, and it's also a very intriguing title. I when I read it, I was like, oh, this is gonna be good.
It was definitely fun to write about, and it's like there is metaphor to it, but it's a little bit like I was trying to make it like obvious metaphor,
Mhm.
to be like just very straightforward, like this is what's happening right now. So yeah, but I had a lot of fun with it, like letting like the silliness kind of come through.
Mm.
That's very interesting that you say obvious metaphor. Maybe I'm just it's maybe a bit too early, but it's still what is it then an obvious metaphor for?
Yeah, like I don't know. I maybe I what's the word? Like second guess it a little
Mm.
bit. Like I hope that it comes through. I want it to be a little bit more mysterious than I think my writing tends to be. But the metaphor I was hoping would come across is like the way we tend to like look at ourselves,
Mm.
and then how we look at ourselves in a new way when other people um, find value in us.
Mm.
And so like the sort of like the otherness of seeing yourself as, or seeing myself as something gross or something wrong or something other, and then when other people come into my life and they maybe like want to feed me organic sweet potatoes and
Yeah.
embrace the weird,
Mm.
then it feels a little bit more accepting. So
Mm.
um yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It's
Did you want to say
no,
something?
no, go on, go on.
I wrote down as you were reading the kind of how the naked mole rat is described by the narrator, and it's ugly and it's gross and it has buck teeth and it looks like an uncircumcised penis and
Grandfather's husband.
sorry, yeah, even worse, and it's called disgusting, and I guess the central kind of tension in the piece is that against the absolute pure love and adoration by the you in the piece, and and yeah, you've kind of touched on it, but yeah, can you I think you, what's also interesting, maybe what's a more specific question, is that it's not the eye that is transformed into this naked mole rat, but the heart. So that kind of has like like a character angle almost, like the heart has turned into the mole rat, and the heart is kind of disgusting and gross, and this the bloodiness of everything, and the kind of physical grossness, and then the grossness of the naked mole rat. And yeah, can you talk a little bit about the choice of having the heart be that rather than like maybe the whole eye, you know?
Sure. Yeah, like earlier you had said that it's cute, which when I workshopped this piece, somebody had said something like it was kind of wholesome, weirdly
Mm.
wholesome, and everybody laughed because some people were like, "What do you mean?" Um,
I do get that.
but but because there is this like viscera and like a sort of horror element to it. For
Mm.
me, the heart was the central, like the imagery that came to mind was the heart transforming, because I think that like the way that we love and the way that we accept love sometimes can just be really transmogrified because of the way we see maybe past relationships, or however we were taught how to love, or any sort of um, history or background or trauma that we go through. But I wanted it to be a love story
Mm.
between somebody who doesn't see value in how they can love yet, and then learns how to see that value, even if it's a little off kilter and a little strange, and a little ugly and a little violent,
Mm.
but it was also that separateness, like
Mm.
it's not quite the right word, but um, taking something about yourself outside of yourself
Yes.
and
Mm.
um, viewing it in a different way and sort of dissociating from it,
Mm.
and then like I said, like learning to find value through the way other people might look at those aspects of you.
Mm.
Yeah, I find that very striking. That's very interesting. It's, yeah, a wonderful way to read the piece. Yeah, it's touching. I guess my question would be: there's also something of an ambivalence in the piece, maybe something of a. It's not like totally unalloyed in its positivity, at least in the way I read it. It's if your heart were to transform and then be caged, there's something deeply sinister there, perhaps. That
Yeah,
I think.
sorry, can I just find the part, because that really stuck out to me when you read it as well. It seemed at first wrong to cage him, but the idea is growing on me. Naked mole rats are small and vulnerable and easily stomped on, and he looks safe and happy in there. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's kind of, and I appreciate that a cage is an interesting symbol of both kind of safety but also control. And there's a kind of, to what extent is this a kind of trading away of control for safety or comfort or love? To what extent is this distancing of the self that this transformation entails? To what extent do we lose something in that process, even if we gain love and security and so on?
Yeah, I love that insight. I love that question. And I definitely like the ambiguity is I love ambiguity when
Mm.
I
Mm,
read and I love ambiguity when I write.
Mhm.
So I sort of like the idea of people reading this, if they read this, to take from that like
Mhm.
maybe something that can apply to them in different ways, because sometimes when I reread this, I think about the cage as like monogamy in
Mm.
general,
mm,
and somebody who is maybe not really used to people treating them with respect and with dignity and with love and care, and isn't really sure what to do with that. Other times I reread it and I think about how when somebody is traumatized and doesn't know how to love and doesn't know how to be in a relationship, that opens them up for a complete different type of like even abuse.
Mhm.
mm,
um and so it's sort of like it is ambiguous, and
Mm.
it's ambiguous in my mind as well. Because you're right, it is sinister, like this idea of like perhaps some freedom and some understanding of self and learned value in the self, and then like just going right back into somebody else's cage. And I think that when we read romance, sometimes they say it's a happily ever after in romance, but I'll read a romantic book and I'll be like, "That's not a happily ever after, like, that person is not good for this person."
Yeah.
Um, I think that it really depends on the individual, um,
Yeah.
what that cage might mean.
mm,
So for me, it's different. It's different depending on how I'm feeling in a day. But it definitely does speak to like you said, the possibility of being trapped in a completely different way.
mm.
Yeah.
That's so
I hope
fun.
I answered your question.
No, you definitely did. You definitely did. You definitely did. And I think that's kind of, the piece engages kind of so interestingly with the kind of a whole kind of idiom we have of the heart as the symbol of love, right? And we say things, "You've stolen my heart, you have my heart," so on. And it's all kind of about possession of the heart is such a deep cultural symbol for love, right? But then the heart, then that kind of implies that the heart is something that can be, that somehow that can be taken and moved, that the body is somehow transformative, not transformative, can be transformed. And but then adding this step of having it first become an animal and then belong to somebody else, it kind of poses that idiom new. It kind of makes you see it, makes you actually think about, what does that actually, if somebody were to actually have your heart, somebody did actually steal your heart, like what does that actually say? And I think that's what this piece managed to do so well, is kind of other that language we have about love and make you actually think about it and not just kind of see the cliches. I think that's very interesting. So that's not quite a question, but just a kind of, just something that I love about this piece.
Thank you. Yeah, I know, like you said, it wasn't a direct question, but I
Mm,
did just want to say, like, I that's exactly what I hoped to do,
amazing.
is to make people think about something maybe in a different way.
Mm,
Mm,
And like you said, like, how do we understand and think about and normalize like this language that we use when we talk about relationships and love, and
Mm.
possession of heart and possession of body and possession of this other person. And we have all of these, maybe this is like deeper, like not necessarily like what I was necessarily trying to say
Mm.
exactly, but these sort of like deeper themes are like what I want to think about and what I want other people to think about and talk about, because I think it's so interesting how our culture, has these things that we just sort of take for granted.
I would like to talk about the narrator
Mhm.
and uh, the kind of the fact that the narrator kind of comes around to the naked mole rat. It's probably not its favorite thing in the world, but it's kind of a it's kind of a humorous thing. And you've talked about how this kind of the metaphor you're going for is that um, you know seeing someone being loving to you can kind of make you change your mind about yourself. But in a kind of literary way, the way this character comes around uh, to the naked mole rat. Um, for example, I sit and stare as you lovingly feed bits of sweet potato to the little guy who looks to me like God's most disgusting creation. Um, um, I don't know, like not in a metaphorical way, but in like an actual, like in the text. Um, it's not super obvious, this kind of that the narrator kind of comes around, or it's like, oh, now that I've seen you be so loving, now I like it too, or something. But it's still kind of ambivalent at the end. What was that like process like of writing this kind of this ambivalence, but this kind of change of mind, if that makes any sense? I don't know if that makes I don't know if, I'm not sure if that makes any sense, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I think like you're talking about like the literal writing of
Yeah.
it, like
Yeah, if you read this not as a metaphor, but as an actual situation that happened.
yeah, it's an interesting question. It's hard to remember because the original iteration of this was many iterations ago.
Mm.
There was a
Mm,
lot of editing. Um, but I wanted there to be sort of a turn towards the end, of this, you know, shift in perspective of the narrator. Um, but I didn't want it to be too dramatic. And so I thought like the little tidbits, like God's most disgusting creation. It's like they're not their mind hasn't been changed
mm,
fully, but these little observations are maybe like, maybe I'm coming around a little
Mm.
bit.
mm,
Maybe I'm starting to see how you view this naked mole rat, um, in a little bit of a better light than I do, but I don't know, like, does that make sense?
mm,
Yes.
Because I think that, it's a short piece, but I think that we don't change our minds that quickly.
mm,
Um, even literally, metaphorically or literally, like, it takes time, and I think it takes a lot of evidence before we can, accept a new perspective or
mm.
take on a new perspective. But yeah, I don't know. I hope that answers.
No, no, that's great.
Oh, it does. It very, very much does. Yeah, I think so at least. I guess I want to talk about the You say this is an iteration. If you do you mind giving us a peek behind the curtain? So how you said this piece came about in a creative writing workshop. You said yes, and like how did this
Mhm, a class.
class? Sorry, how did this? Could you tell us a bit about the kind of the process of writing and drafting this piece, as much as you remember?
Sure. So the first draft was actually a poem.
Hmm.
Oh,
Um,
I can kind of tell,
Hmm.
yeah.
it was like very, I tend to write very short and sweet since I can remember that is what I remember being drilled into me. Like, you don't need extra detail if you don't need the extra detail.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my drafts, I need to fluff them up later in editing.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's the story that I think of first. So it was a poem. It was like a, you know, like a prose poem, and it was very short and sweet. Um, and the response I got in that first class, which was like an intro
Yeah.
course, um, it was very like, huh, you know? And I was like, oh, I should scrap it. That was weird. It was too weird. But then as I just kept coming back to it, and it sort of became a metaphor as well for my writing, like learning to find value in the weird writing that I want to write. You know, I think I held back so much in other stories and other poems. But I just am really drawn to the weird stories and unconventional narratives, and something that kind of makes people go, huh? And so I kept coming back to it, and I submitted it as a short for another class later on. And the response I got then was like, no, Kendall, you need to go weirder. Like, you need to lean into it. And so that's when like the description of the naked mole rat came in. And it always felt like it was always a narrative. So it felt better to have it as a short story or flash fiction than as a poem. And again, my writing isn't very like fluffy.
Yeah.
I fluff it up, but so the poetry didn't feel right. I was like, no, it's too straightforward for that. So yeah, many different types of editing, and a lot of different people looked at it because I wrote it in class. But it was over a year, I want to say, between like the first time I sat down and wrote it, which was in the library I was at SDSU in San Diego, and then the final draft of it was written not long before I started submitting it. Well, it was edited and revised.
Yes.
Um,
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's I always love getting that kind of insight. That's really interesting.
Sorry.
No, you go.
I find it very interesting the extra detail you said you don't put in any extra detail, and that's also a really charming thing about this piece is that there's no time wasted on the characters. It starts with I woke up this morning and then I went to your house, and there is obviously still the characters still come across, but it's not like this is Johnny. Johnny's 27 and he lives, and he does this for a job. It's just I and you, and this kind of it's very you said flash fiction, and the characters, yeah, they're not super specific. As I said, they're specific in their kind of in the disgust and the kind of the curiosity, where's my heart gone, and then the emotion and the love, and yeah, but there's no names, no hair color, none of these things, and I think that works really well in this piece. And I think there could have been a very bad creative writing teacher who could have told you the characters aren't fleshed out enough. You need some detail. You need some description of them. And I think it's very very good that it's not there.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
yeah, my professor for that class, she's like, I want to know more about the naked mole rat. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, I
No,
totally get that.
I totally
It's
agree.
good.
And I think it's kind of just the right amount of description, just the kind of the right amount of fluff, as you put it. I wouldn't like. Yeah, it's a good instinct to kind of not have too much fluff. I think. But yeah, I think that's the other thing I want to talk about is this deeply funny and kind of irreverent tone of the piece. Things like about the heart shaped pupils and things. This kind of cartoonish cartoonish style I find, and the voice of it is truly, it kind of makes the whole piece really. And I think, I don't know, is that kind of just a general style in how you write, or is this a specific choice for this piece, or kind of how did that come about, and what are the motivations behind that?
It's so funny because I it's just how I write,
Mm.
and very often I will have people read and be like, "Wow, that was funny," and I was like, "Oh." I didn't know that, or I didn't mean to be like,
Mm.
or maybe I was trying to be, but I didn't expect it to land. And
Mm.
so I got that uh response, and I wanted to lean into it. So I definitely leaned into it a little bit more because this is really wacky, like the naked mole rat. Just that imagery, I think, is shocking enough to where it fits. It works to
Mm.
have this sort of like dark comedic tone. But I do tend to just write with a little bit. Yeah, that is sort of like my natural voice, I think.
That makes sense.
And it was really fun for this piece
Mm.
to lean into it because I find myself trying to hold back and be more serious. Um, I was watching one of your guys' not old, like a couple of episodes ago, and you guys were talking about like the seriousness of literature, and really, I really like that really lands for me because I tend to be silly
Yeah.
and try, be funny. That's just how I write. That's how I talk. And so it was really nice for this piece to just like, no, I'm leaning into the silliness of it and the sort of comedy of it. Yeah, it feels like I need to be more serious sometimes.
No, not at
Yeah,
all.
I wouldn't say so. I think we certainly get a lot of serious pieces that are so it's very nice to get something that isn't so serious, and it has a lot to say, and there's no tension between humor and joy and meaning
Mm,
and weight. Those
Right.
things like
mm,
help each other, I think, even often. And yeah, like obviously it'll be difficult to write something funny about certain topics, but it's certainly not impossible. And you know, other topics is entirely appropriate. So I think it's I don't. I think it's a good. I think if you're funny, you should be funny. You know, it's the
yeah.
problem is that if you're not funny, it's difficult to fake it. But it seems like you are funny, so I would stick with
And a
that.
lot of people really shy away from humor in literature. There's a lot of people who would never go there to even try to be funny because they're so scared of it not landing. And I think we need more of that.
Mm.
Just be funny.
Yeah,
People can do it in real life, so you can do it in literature.
yeah, exactly.
I agree. And I love what you said about, like you can have humor and also say something meaningful and ask
Mm.
important questions. And yeah, I definitely would want to read more. Uh, I love to read authors who can be funnier, can be a little sillier, can put a smile on my face, even if it's even if it is a darker theme, um, or something really deep. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Um, yeah, I guess then if there's nothing more, no further comments anybody would like to add, we can maybe move on to our big question for this edition of the magazine, which is why should people write? What do you think, or why do you write? Why is writing important, or indeed is it important?
I love that question. And I think about this a lot
Mm.
because it's such a pillar in my life is reading and writing too, but mostly it's reading
Mhm.
and listening to stories. And I think that it's what makes us human. It's what makes us um, it's so important, not just writing, but any sort of stories. Like it's where we get everything. Our society is really based on telling stories, things that did happen, things that might have happened, in so many different mediums. I write, I can't help but write. I have to write. I can't not. I
Mm,
I have too many things in my brain and I have to write in order to process it. And I think I think more people should write because I think everybody has something important to say. I think everybody has, you know, whether it's fiction or poetry, maybe not, but you know, we understand our society through stories, whether it's movies or television, history, everything we learn in a classroom. Um, I think it's really what makes us human. And it's, you're going to laugh at me, but I just watched the finale for Game of Thrones on like my third
Hmm.
rewatch. And one of the characters says, like, what are we? Like, we are just stories. Like, that's really, that's something that's so important in our society and to who we are as people. And I just can't even fathom our society without any society without stories of some sort. And I think that it's how we understand the world around us and it's how we understand our relationships and the people who we have in our lives on a small scale and a large scale. Um,
mm.
so.
Yeah, I really love that. It kind of made me think about how um I don't know, literature and writing has kind of become a thing that writers do. Like you have to be a writer and you have to ideally study literature or study creative writing and then you can write. And we've both of us were literature students and study creative writing as well. And so, you know, I feel free to call out people like us where it sometimes feels like, you know, you study the kind of form, but not actually the content of anything. And sometimes I think, okay, wouldn't it make more sense to have an angle like, I don't know, if you're um, a biologist, to then go and write stories from this kind of angle, like you have an angle in, or you have a certain perspective on the world. And for some reason that doesn't seem to happen very much. But it's more like, um, you know, you are a writer, writing is your thing, literature is your thing, and then you can write. And you said that you want more people to write, and I also think it would be nice if it was more seen as a kind of universal human thing rather than that us literature nerds kind of do it. I don't know if that makes sense. Or like, I don't know, I'm thinking of the kind of French existentialists who were philosophers, but then to kind of get their story across, their kind of philosophy across, I guess, they wrote novels. And it would kind of be very lovely to have writing be for everyone a little bit more.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. And I love the existentialists who write plays and
Mm,
novels and short stories to get us to think about things in a different way. And I think to your point, um, reading stories that have been written by people who are not like us, that's how we gain empathy. Like
mm,
that's really the only way that we can learn how to empathize with people who live, you know, walk a different path than we do. And that's something that our society could really use a lot more of is people like being more understanding and empathetic towards people who are different than them. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that it should be accessible and available to everybody. Save our libraries.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's a very good point. That like I guess the writing should maybe be you should kind of already be an expert in something else, and then you can kind of apply that perspective to writing rather than having writing be the kind of the thing, and then you have to kind of find something else to write about. I understand that. It's an interesting way of thinking about it.
Maybe it's more of a, like a journalistic kind of
Yeah,
angle, but at least it's sad that there's like science people and then there's humanities people, and we're kind of not really encouraged to engage with the other side.
yeah. No, I understand that. I do see that. I think, yeah, it's interesting. I think, you talked a lot about stories that Kendall, and I think that's also very striking. Do you think there's do you think there's a difference between sometimes something happens to a story when we write it, as opposed to when it is an oral story or a kind of a cultural myth. Does the kind of act of writing it, does that have some kind of, does that change something about the story to you? Is that or is that just all kind of one and the same thing to you?
Yeah, I would definitely say that the act of writing, because writing can only be done by, you can have collaborations,
Hmm.
but it's really just one person writing their perspective. And I think that that does transform the story into, anybody who reads. I think people always say that reading and writing is a very introverted hobby, but I think that it's one of the only things in this world where we can truly understand another person's perspective and
Mm.
truly understand another person's train of thought, um, and who they are, because they, as much as we might try, sometimes it's going to come out on the paper, like who we are really, and what we really believe in our values and personal philosophies. So yeah, I definitely think that the act of writing transforms it into something so personal. And it can be, I don't want to say individualistic, because I think that it can transcend individuals, but I do think that it is that an individual person's perspective, uh, and memory. And those aren't always, even if we're writing nonfiction or if we're writing history, that's not always going to be the truth or exactly what happened.
Hmm.
So the writing helps us understand the writer,
Mm.
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. And what strikes me about what you say is that it feels kind of in opposition to, like a little bit to the way writing is often thought about. Often think, sorry, it's often thought about, which is that it's kind of transformative for the writer, and I like that you're kind of talking about the writer as the kind of the person who does something, but not necessarily the person who gets the benefit, but it's kind of wider society or other people who then get an insight into the writer or into the characters the writer's writing. Um, and I think that's a really nice kind of um, way to think about it, because I mean we've talked before as well about the kind of poetry as therapy idea, and how that doesn't really ring true to me, or it doesn't, not necessarily doesn't ring true, but it's just kind of, if that's the only purpose in writing is to have an effect on the writer, then um, the actual kind of art and craft and these sort of things, they get a little bit lost, I think. But if you think about it, like you're influencing your wider society and you're trying to bring something across, then you also have to think about the effectiveness of the piece, which is, I think, always always a good thing to do. So that really appeals to me about kind of the perspective that you had.
Thank you. Yeah, what you said kind of makes me think of, like our intention versus our action.
Mhm.
And I think, as I write and as I read, I think of my own perspective a lot and my own intention. But like you said, the action is also like the effect that we have on the people around us. I mean, that doesn't just apply to writing, but to everything. Um, that's something it's a big piece of the context anyway.
Mm.
Understanding writing and reading is something kind of introverted or something kind of inward looking, I do think is a mistake. I do think both writing and reading are kind of processes in of looking outwards, and looking kind of towards the other. So I think that's a very astute analysis.
and
I never really
and
thought
the other
about
way
that before.
around, like inviting others in as well.
Yes, that's true. I suppose.
I
Yes,
think
very.
that's how I
Mm.
understood Kendall more,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
she
No, I get
so.
you. I get you. No, that's true as well. I was thinking more when you write, you kind of have to think about how other people are gonna interpret what you're doing, and when you read, you have to try and understand other people's perspectives. But I understand what you're saying. You do have to kind of also let people into your interiority. That's very true. Yeah,
Mm.
maybe I got the wrong end of the stick there. Totally.
I've always said that, like, poetry is often personal, but fiction is sometimes, if you know the content, well, if you know the where it's coming from, it's sometimes embarrassingly personal as well, and you're just maybe other people don't know. Like maybe if you write a poem, people think, okay, that's kind of about the poet, but in fiction people don't tend to go there. But sometimes it's actually embarrassing to read it and be like, oh, those are all the things I've been thinking about, and all my flaws and all my ideas and everything is right there.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay then, well, I suppose if there's no more comments, Kendall, would you mind reading the piece for us one more time? And then we'll say
Sure.
goodbye.
I lost my page. Okay. My heart incomprehensibly transforms into a naked mole rat. This morning I woke and found that my heart was missing. A gaping hole above my left breast, and a trail of blood and dollops of skin and pus and sinew leading out of my bedroom to the hall out the door. I followed the trail, holding a dirty purple flannel from my laundry basket over the crater in my chest. I could feel the broken rib poking my hand, arteries spiraling out, hoses left unattended and gushing. The trail made up of little chompy bits of me, dots on a treasure map. Some kind of sick path of breadcrumbs out of someone's nightmare. X marks the spot, and I end up at your front door. I walk right into your kitchen where you excitedly tell me that you have a new pet, a naked mole rat, who came to your door first thing this morning. A baby, you said, covered in blood like it had just sprung from its mother's womb. You're not incorrect, not entirely. You bring him to the door to show him off, cradling him between sprawled, fingered hands, and his wet little nose hiding behind the longest, ugliest buck teeth I've seen in my life, wiggles through the bars of his cage and stops as his beady black eyes lock onto mine. His loose pink skin reminds me of somebody's grandfather's uncircumcised penis, and I can't look at him anymore. You had already gone to the pet store. You bought a cage, asked the kid at the counter for pellets to feed your newest friend. He said, "We don't sell naked mole rat food here, but I think it might like these regular rat treats." You Googled it and found out they eat their own poop, root vegetables, and especially love sweet potatoes. So you went to the farmer's market for the best organic tubers you could find. It seemed at first wrong to cage him, but the idea is growing on me. Naked mole rats are small and vulnerable and easily stomped on, and he looks safe and happy in there. His name is Thaddeus. I sit and stare as you lovingly feed bits of sweet potato to the little guy who looks to me like God's most disgusting creation. You have cartoony, heart shaped pupils bouncing out of your skull as he nibbles out of your fingers. Your face lightens with a sort of odd hilarity that makes me see him in a different way. Maybe he's not so bad. I was planning on telling you all about my heart escaping, but that cage on your kitchen counter seemed a better place than this empty crevice. Naked mole rats need to be socialized anyway, and it would probably eat my other organs if I put it back. Probably just escape again to the cage he loves so much. He seems happy to be your pet. I don't want him back anyway. You can keep him.
Amazing, Kendall. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll say thank you so much for watching or listening. We'll be back soon with another one of these, so don't go anywhere. And you can read Kendall's piece at readingintheculture.com/summer 2026. And yeah, we got a bunch of great pieces there. You should check them all out. And yeah, if you want, you could go give us some money or something. But
Stop it.
anyway, bye. Thanks so much, Kendall. Bye.
Don't say the money bit.
Why? Website doesn't run itself. All I said is if you want, you can give us money. I didn't say anything bad. Oh, and I almost forgot. You can buy our print edition of Reading in the Culture, the summer edition. Look at this beautiful cover. You can buy that. If you go to our website, you can just buy it there. Amazing. You should do it as well. It's good. It's worth it.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, now that's done.
Bye,
Oh my
Hey!
god!